Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel Klinger2. In today's video I'm going to be going over the competitive items for Pokemon. This is based off of the most commonly used items on Pokemon Showdown, and I'm assuming this is going to be what most people use in VGC as well as Wi-Fi battles on the actual games on the consoles. So, take this for what you want. If it helps you, great, and hopefully it does. Feel free to like, follow, and subscribe. And let's just get started here. So basically we got the berries off first. We got the guava, fig, mango, or mago. I always say mango because it's basically mango without the N. Wiki. So basically these ones are pretty good because they're higher restore rate, or they basically give you more HP than the citrus berry does. And it restores 1/3 max HP when below a quarter health basically. And then depending on your natures, you have to double check the berries, but depending on the nature where it says minus, you have to make sure it's not that so it doesn't confuse you whenever you consume it. And then after that, you're pretty much good to go. It's just going to restore basically 1/3 of your health whenever you're down below a quarter. This can be good if you have a really bulky Pokemon, like you do 2 Calm Mind to a Kyogre, someone hits you with a special attack or something like that. You know, you're pretty much set when you have this going down. I've used that and it worked pretty well. I'm not going to lie, it threw a lot of people off. So it's pretty good. If you're just looking for straight up HP regen, this is really good. The Salic is also, I would say it's like as good, if not a little bit better, depending on how you want to use it. Because instead of basically restoring your HP, it lets you get a speed boost, which everyone knows in Pokemon speed's the game. So you get a speed boost, you're pretty much good to go. You're going to retaliate after you get down below that quarter of a health. And depending on the Pokemon you have, depending on the matchup, it can be very, very helpful. So yeah, that's a very good, basically, item as well. Next up, we got the choice items. And the choice items are widely used. These are your go-tos for the most part. The reason is because they're not consumables. They're going to stick with you through the entire match. And they also don't even hurt you as well. And they're just really strong. The only drawback is with the choice band and choice specs, whatever move you execute first is going to be the move that you're going to have to use with that Pokemon until you switch out. With Scarf, it's the same deal, but it boosts your speed instead. That's really about the only difference. Well, all three of them are the same in that regard. Basically, the first move you execute is what you're going to use. That's not a status move. It has to be a physical or special move. Overall, very good. You know, choice specs is used a lot with a lot of special attackers, as it should be. That's the whole point of it. So if you got like you know, a Lugia, or you got, let's say you wanted to run like a special Yveltal, special Xerneas, all these Pokemon are really good with them. Choice Band, I'm thinking of like Lucario. You know, you might have an extreme speed set for like Dragonite, you might use a Choice Band with, or something like that. Just a lot of good options there with Choice Bands as well. The Arceus was not really a good choice, but that's the only thing I could think of. Maybe if you have like an extreme speed, normal type setup, you can use a choice band with it. That'd be pretty good, just off the rips, doing tons of damage. The choice scarf is probably going to be the widely used one. The one I can think of off the top of my head is Ditto Scarf. Ditto Scarf has been very classic. I think it's a very good strat if you're basically having a meta based around high stat buffs, like it used to be with Gen 8. Not so sure on Gen 9 Ubers, but Choice Scarf is super good for that because you can just basically mimic a Zacian and just outspeed them because it copies their stat and gives you that extra speed boost. It's just good, and then you can retaliate with basically the same stat buffs and everything. So basically, you just stole their Pokemon is what you did. The only downside is like basically you can only choose the first move you execute, but really that normally if you can use Ditto right, that's good enough, honestly. So. And besides that, it's not just Ditto. This can be used on pretty much any sweeper that you can think of. Cerulege is really nice to use this on if you can do that. And just straight up just do Bitter Blade or any of those moves. You don't really like use this on, you know, potentially Cerulege, but something like Iron Valiant would be really good from like the Gallade variant. You know, you can mess around with it. It's pretty much good on every Pokemon. I'm just getting like Pokemon on the top of my head. I don't really have a sheet of Pokemon listed with this to talk about like the items, but I'm just going off the top of my head for those. So defensive items, we got Assault Vest, Eviolite, Heavy Duty Boots, and Leftovers. Assault Vest is just good for Pokemon that need to have a special defense. It's kind of weird they don't have one that's equivalent for defense, but it's for special defense, and basically just buffs it by 1.5, so it's like having a calm mind minus the special attack buff. But you can only select damaging moves. So basically, if you have a really high special defense Pokemon and you want it to be even higher, you can just put an Assault Vest on, or if you have a really strong defensive Pokemon but you want it to have a coverage for special defense, you can do that and just start dealing some damage. The only downside is you really can't choose anything that's not a damaging move. But what the upside of that is you can have a very wide variety of moves, especially with the fact you can put Terra types on you and stuff now. So really, this is a pretty good item, I feel like, for mostly everything. It depends on the Pokemon as well. Eviolite, another really good one. Man, Eviolite's nuts. You put it on Chansey. Because Chansey, how it works is basically the final evolution. If there's anything before that final evolution, you can put an Eviolite on it, and it buffs its defense and special defense, which makes Chansey extremely bulky. I'm pretty sure for special. And you could put it on something like Bisharp to make it very bulky as well as being very deadly. So there's a lot of things you can do with Eviolite. It's only on certain Pokemon, but on the certain Pokemon it's used on, it's very, very good. Heavy Duty Boots is basically whenever you switch in, you're unaffected by entry hazards, so Stealth Rock spikes, Toxic spikes, Sticky Web, stuff like that. It's not going to be, you're not going to be affected by those. So what a lot of people do is they put it on a defogger or spinner. So, like for instance, you could put it on Yveltal to fog it, and then you basically get in for free, and you can defog everything off your side. You can put a Starmie. You can put it on Starmie and get basically the same thing, but with Rapid Spin. Or you can use it as more of a completely defensive measure and have it on like Charizard, where basically going to take ×4 from spikes or rocks, mainly rocks on the ground. Same thing with Volcrona. So it's a pretty big meme that Volcrona always has heavy duty boots, because the thing is, if it lands on any spikes, it just half its health's gone. So you really, depending on the Pokemon you're choosing, heavy duty boots should be a very good option for that, because spikes and rocks are very prominent in competitive Pokemon. Leftovers, just an all-around good item. Really, you can't go wrong with leftovers, unless if you have just a straight-up glass cannon sweeper, then that's where you're going to go wrong. Outside of that, even if you have a mid-bulk to bulky Pokemon, it just restores your health at the end of the turn. I mean, you can't go wrong with that, right? So leftovers is good, especially for a bulky Pokemon. Like if you're going for, I use Amoonguss with leftovers and Regenerator. So when I'm using leftovers, I'm gaining XP, or I'm not XP, but HP back. I swamp out with Regenerator. I basically am full HP the entire match, unless like basically he's like the last Pokemon on my team, or he just straight up gets like waxed by somebody. But for the most part, the dude's going to stay like high HP. That's just an example, but like Snorlax with leftovers is also really good and stuff like that. So the more bulkier the better with leftovers, but it can certainly be used on less bulky Pokemon. Next up, we got the offensive items. We got Expert Belt, Focus Sash, Life Orb, and Rocky Helmet. Now, Expert Belt is probably the least used out of all these, just because it has to do with a very specific clause that it's super effective damage only, and that sometimes can be a little bit of an issue depending on your type matchup and everything like that, and the other Pokemon on the other team. But it deals 1.2 times damage if you do it a super effective hit on somebody. Which, I mean, it's extra damage, so you can't really go wrong with that, right? But it's still a little bit. I think this one's definitely one of the least used items as far as the like main items in like the Pokemon Showdown list. So, but it can be used though. Can definitely be helpful in certain situations. So Focus Sash is used quite a bit for gimmick teams as well as just teams in general. Basically, whenever you would die by a one-hit kill move, by either a super effective, an actual one-hit kill move like Fisher, you get dropped down to 1 HP instead of dying. And what that does is basically it allows you to survive a hit and retaliate. Now, what the thing is, if you have rocks or spikes or anything like that, it gets rid of the Focus Sash. So you have to be at full HP whenever this to be able to take effect. So a lot of gimmick teams, they'll restore their HP with like Shell Bell once they get down to 1 HP, and they'll go all the way back up to full health with some like level 1 Pokemon, and then they just like spam this over and over again with like Sturdy and stuff like that. And then so once it happens, it's consumed. So yeah, Focus Sash is a pretty good one, especially if you want to do like, I have this set with Iron Valiant actually with Destiny Bond. And I'll put a sash on them, I'll knock them off, and if I'm faster, I'll actually get down to 1 HP, and they'll use Destiny Bond, they'll kill me, and they'll basically kill them for free. So, Focus Sash, all around, pretty good item. Definitely used on certain Pokemon, though. It's not an all-around goes item, especially when you get into competitive Pokemon, like high levels, it's normally not used that much, but for lower ranks, it can be used on a fair bit of Pokemon. Life Orb is your go-to to straight up all-around attacking. And attacks do 1.3 times damage every time they do a physical or special attack. And while you're doing those, you take 1/10 of your max XP while you basically use those moves. So you're basically hurting yourself to do more damage. Now, the hurting yourself thing doesn't matter if the opponent dies faster than you, right? So really, you're using this on a sweeper pretty much only. You're not using this on anything but a sweeper. And the thing is, status moves, or basically non-attacking moves, do not count as the damage back to you. So you can actually just sit there, swords dance a few times, or you can just dance a few times, a quiver dance or something, and then basically use attacking moves from there, buff your speed up, buff your attack, and you're good to go, right? So Life Orb all around is a really good item for competitive Pokemon. I'd say it's easily probably top 5 for sure, probably top 3 honestly. Rocky Helmet, it's not used as much, but what it does is basically if you get hit with a physical move or a contact move, the attacker that attacks you loses 1/6 of their max HP. So a lot of people use this with Iron Barbs or Rough Skin. So for instance, Ferrothorn, whenever it has Iron Barbs, you stick a Rocky Helmet on, someone hits you with a fire move that's physical, they just took a lot of damage back because now they have basically from Iron Barbs and Rocky Helmet, that's already enough to consider like a damage move. And if they have Life Orb, they took like an extra hit as well. And you can retaliate as well with if you have like any survivability with Ferrothorn, for instance, after getting hit with a fire move. If that does happen, you could retaliate from there and probably kill them. So there is that. And then, like I said, like Rough Skin with Garchomp and stuff like that, that's also a very viable option. It's basically the same thing, like with Ferrothorn, just with Garchomp with Rough Skin. With Rough Skin deals damage if someone contacts them. So that's normally how Rocky Helmet's used. You can use it on other Pokemon as well that, you know, for maybe a gimmick strat or just having a Pokemon that's bulky and you just want to have it on them. So yeah, next up is the herbs. There's only 3 of them that I would consider that are actually used, and really 2 of them I would consider to be used the majority of the time. It says Pokemon Showdown, it says Mental Herb is used a lot, but really I don't see that a lot. What I really see is White Herb used a lot in Pokemon Showdown, especially in randoms with like Omastar with Shell Smash, and a lot of other Pokemon that use Shell Smash. But what it does is White Herb restores all lowered stat stages to 0 when it becomes less than 0. So for instance, whenever you use Shell Smash, you go +1 I think in speed, no, +2 in speed, +2 in attack, and I think +2 in special attack, or is it defense? I'm pretty sure it's special attack. And then you go -1 in defense and -1 in special defense. But instead of having that happen, when White Herb is on your like Omastar, it takes off those negative stats, basically debuffs. So then you go back to 0, which is really nice. So if someone can't just come to you and like sucker punch you and just basically kill you, instead you're actually at full like defenses at that point. So White Herb's really good for like I said, like Shell Smash, potentially like super power and stuff like that, or close combat. Next up is Power Herb. This one's not as frequently used, but when you see it used, it's normally on Pokemon like Xerneas that have really good like status buff moves that require 2 turns to use. Like Solar Beam's one of them, Geomancy from Xerneas. Basically, if you see a Xerneas, there's almost an 80% to 90% chance it has a Power Herb because it's going to Geomancy, because it's just literally the best like status buff in the game, pretty much. And yeah, so Power Herb's really good on certain Pokemon, but it's also a item you're just not going to see that much. But the other thing about these herbs is all of them are consumable, so once you use them once in the match, they're done. That's no longer on your Pokemon. So just to put that out there. Mental Herb is not as used, but it basically cures the holder of Attract, Disable, Encore, Heal, Block, Taunt, Torment. But you're mainly using this for probably Encore and Disable. You don't really see Encore, you don't really see Attract Heal Block, Torment, you'll probably see Taunt. So you're really only using it for those, and I'd only say this is a very specific case of a Pokemon. Like if you have a lead that you need to set up with, like you need to set up rocks, which a lot of people would say you do, you might put this on your lead so if someone taunts you, it gets rid of that taunt so you can set up your rocks. So I haven't seen it that much. Not saying people don't run it, it's just Mental Herb is just not that common. And then, yeah, so really these are the overall majority of the items that people are going to use in competitive Pokemon, especially on Pokemon Showdown. There's a lot of other items that I might get into for like special niche cases, but really these are going to be your overall. Like if you choose from this batch, you're pretty much going to be good. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Have a good day. Feel free to subscribe, like, comment.